answer when a site that you should get to know as well, organisation. Yeah, over to you, Valerie.
Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for making time and coming to listen. I'm not sure what you would expect this talk to be, but I would like to present myself. My name is Valerie, and I'm a curator. And my passion is in public art. And this is what I would like to talk to you about today, my vision of what public art is. And I would like to share with you a bunch of short stories that I collected in my passionate research of this topic. Hey, come in. We were just starting. So I'm collecting a lot of short stories about people who are doing public art in Cape Town and in other places in the world. And I'm also curating projects of public art myself. So I'm here to share with you many of the projects that I collected. As long as we will have time, we will hear stories. We will not be able to hear it all. So I would like to ask you, each one individually, to think for a moment what public art is. And it doesn't have to be a right or wrong answer, because I believe that in art there is no right or wrong answer. That's what's beautiful. So think for a moment individually what public art is for your understanding. If you can, please write it down. And I will start with a short video, and we can take the conversation from there.
Right.
Welcome. My name is Valerie, and I'm curator of public art. So today we will tell short stories about what public art is. And I asked everyone to think what public art is in your opinion. And now I would like to show you a short video, and then we will open up this conversation. So now take what your answer was in your head, and think how it applies to this video. What do you think we just seen? How does it have to do with public art?
So the change names of places that were previously District 6 back to District 6 kind of heritage.
What is District 6?
It was a community that I think the apartheid kind of knocked down because it was a very vibrant community in Cape Town.
And where does the name come into play?
Well, that's the original name from during apartheid.
And
then
then
it was changed after. So they changed it back to make a statement about which
Do you think it's art?
Yeah, potentially it could be. But
Did it depend who you ask?
If I ask you,
Art, not for me personally, no.
can you please share with me what would be your idea of art or public art?
I don't know. I feel like public art would need a bit more of like creating something. Like personally, I mean, I think it's very open to interpretation. For me, just change. I don't know. I think it needs something more like creating something out of nothing.
And by creating something, you mean necessarily a material something. When you say creating, you see something physical being made.
I think one of the things with art is that it can also often be quite exclusive, and that certain people can only understand it. You can only understand it if you've got certain knowledge, whereas public art kind of needs to be quite universal in its understanding so that everyone can understand it.
You can't even
want to put it in public space, so that everyone
This
will
thing is
buy
really
it
shit.
by your understanding.
Would anyone like at this point to share with me what your thought was when I asked you to think what is public art?
well, I was thinking it's more like installations, like in the observatory there's a statue by Angus Taylor next to McDonald's or
Yeah.
KFC there.
Or like the dinosaurs and stuff.
Yeah. So literal, not, as you said, physical installations.
Anyone had any other idea in mind? Remember, there is no wrong or right, it's just about hearing each other's opinions, because I feel that what I will present to you might be a little bit different, so there is space to be different in this hour.
Well, I think that the signs, I mean, it was just the words that were replaced. And I was expecting, I mean, then is all the signage art. And I think it's the act of replacing it that makes it art. But I wasn't expecting something like that. Presentation or something.
Because like, would it be considered art if they took a stencil or something and spray painted over it? Because that's like them creating, but it's just back then it was like a stick. But then, like, that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that in my research I found that many times the perception of art is material creation, and the perception of public art is taking that material creation outside of a gallery or a museum or a studio and putting it in a public space, and public space is 90% of the time the street. So I would like to share with you a little bit different perception on what public art is. In my belief, public art is when your material is the public. When your material and your creation are in the society. So your material is the society, is what happens in the society, how it looks like, and how public behaves. And when you are playing with that, interfering with that, and creating something inside of that, that is your work of art. So in different academic settings that would be called relational art, conceptual art. There is a lot of nice words for it, but I would like today to keep it down to something more easy and not go into those long words, because public art, the way I perceive it, it's something that everyone should understand. It should be easy, clear, every day, and somehow fitting into the real life. So I would like to keep this conversation light, and so we can also have a conversation. I brought a few examples of what I mean, because that might sound very theoretical and not really clear what it's talking about. So in addition to this work by Harun Gansali, who is 25 years old, I think, a Victorian artist, I have other examples, but I just want to mention that I find this one to be the most amazing public artwork in Cape Town these days, because for more than 2 years it's still there. And for more than 2 years, every time I'm taking a taxi to town and I'm passing by the castle, or on my way back, I see more than one sign that says District 6. And I know this is actually a work of some 25-year-old boy who just took a friend and went somewhere with a letter, printed something that looks legit, and just left it there. And the fact that it remains there, and that people don't even know it's art, they just pass there by and they see District 6 and it somehow gets into your imagination, that I find to be the most effective tool of doing things, and not declaring it or just doing it for a few days and then taking it off. It's still there, you can see it by the tassel, and that's what I believe playing with the society can mean. And before we move on, I would like to ask you, do you read? Do you see well the titles?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just like to ask you to choose a word that speaks to you, and then behind it I will tell you a short story about the public artwork that addresses that issue. What's a peep show? First of all, I really must compliment you, because when I was titling Peep Show, I was thinking that's probably the first thing people would like to open, but I want to see if anyone will dare to say that, because we are educated to be so secret when it comes to sexuality, and Peep Show is in reference to that. So you are a brave lady, and let's see what Peep Show is. And could you please, before we go into the pictures, there is a video there that I would like to show, and we'll start the conversation from that. Not this one, sorry. That one in the first row in the middle. Yeah, sorry for that.
So I could recommend.
The leg is moving. It's moving. I need to catch. Hey, I need to catch. I need to get back. Get back.
What did you think when you chose Peep Show? What was the...
It was mainly just I didn't know what it was, so I wanted to know more. I don't know, the rest of them were very obvious. And that one I just very curious.
And what would be your expectation when you think about this world?
I actually have no expectation.
Well, what you have just seen is a work of choreography, of public art choreography, by a dancer named Tebucho Muniai, who took 4 structures of shacks and made holes inside of their walls and put them in public spaces in the center of Cape Town. Once he did it as part of Infecting the City Public Art Festival in the Grand Parade in front of the City Hall. Another time he did it in Prestridge Memorial on the border between CBD and Greenpoint. And inside every shack he put a dancer who tells a story through their dance. And these are domestic stories of domestic violence, of a sangoma who is a traditional healer, and this is a dancer on a wheelchair, and a man struggling with dog as a metaphor for a breadwinner. And those domestic stories he put inside shacks in public spaces, and without announcing, he just said, okay, now we are starting. And what happened, people would be passing by, and they would see something and would hear music, so they would go into the shack, and there would be a hall, so they would look inside the hall, and through the hall they would see what happens inside. So instead of doing it in a theater or in a concert hall, that's the way it would be done. People would not have to buy tickets, they would not have to know it's happening, they would not have to be called, hey, look inside. It would just happen naturally, which speaks to our natural instinct of, I guess, peep showing into other people's lives. We can do it via Facebook today, we can do it via internet, but we can also physically experience this idea of looking in somewhere and feeling a little bit weird about it, but at the same time engaging very differently with the work of art. Now, in larger context, that work of art brings actually the reality of living in a shack into spaces that do not know that kind of reality. The center of Cape Town does know the visuals of shacks and does not know the psychology of what it is like to live in a small space which is very near each other, and what it is like to hear and to literally peep into somebody else's life because it's your neighbor and you can hear what's happening in their house and how do you respond to that. So those are the conversations that the book wanted to provoke in those passers-by who would be people who know the reality of shacks and are on their way from work to the bus station, and some people who just weren't meant to be there and they have no idea. So that was his creative way of having conversations about poverty, about peeping into other people's lives. People can understand it from different perspectives, but that was a very creative way of using dance and a public space and creativity to have interesting, relevant political conversations. Let's move to the next one. If you